This is one of my favorite bits of PyCon. For those of you who are at your first PyCon, hopefully it's one of your favorite bits of PyCon by the end of it. My name is Christopher Neugebauer. I'm one of the directors of the Python Software Foundation.
Yeah, and I'm Abigail Misrenyamidogbe. I'm from Ghana, and I'm also on the board at the Python Software Foundation.
And thank you. We will be hosting your lightning talks today and occasionally throughout the rest of the weekend. We've got a couple of other wonderful presenters who'll be hosting you through the rest of the weekend as well. Today we have 13 or so presenters who will be sharing some really interesting and or funny things, perhaps both. If you are a presenter and you haven't made yourselves known to us, please come and find us at the front. We'll tell you where to sit and make sure that the program goes okay. So everyone has 5 minutes. It will be very strongly enforced, so you do make sure you run to time. And with that, our first presenter, Evan Kohilas.
Cool. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Have we had a great Friday? Yeah, great. That's what I love to hear. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to talk about how I learned to stop worrying and love connecting. So I'm Evan, and I attend and speak at quite a few conferences around the world, and I also help organize conferences like PyCon Australia. But I have a problem. All of these conferences, they're like, go talk to people you don't know. And I'm just, oh no, I don't want to do this. And that's hard, right? Because for me, I tend to forget people's names, and I'm probably also a bit face blind, so I just don't know what people look like. And so a while ago, I started doing this thing where every time I met someone new, I asked if we could take a selfie. And it's just so fun and very memorable, because after connecting with them, I send it through to them, and next time I see them online, rather than trying to decipher who they were based on their probably outdated profile picture, their photo not only put a face to their name, but the background also reminds me of the context. And so if you haven't already noticed, these are all of the photos of everyone that I connected with last year. And you might also have started to notice that I'm slowly getting more tired as the conference goes on. So I do recommend you sleep, like in this one, where I'm basically asleep while taking the photo. Okay, some of you may be a bit shy, and that's okay. I was too when I started attending conferences so long ago. If you want to do this yourself and try and break out of your own mold, I do have some tips. It's similar to how I've asked for consent to put photos of people on these slides. It's also important to ask for consent before taking selfies. Not everyone will be comfortable, and that's fine. It's also nice because when you message people afterwards, they'll be more likely to remember you rather than just being like, who's this Evan dude with cookies on his face? Now, get your phones out because this slide will only be up for 5 more seconds. I had a lot of problems doing this whole selfie thing, and so I made a tiny front-end only downloadable web app to make the process a bit smoother. You put in your LinkedIn username, and it'll create a QR code for you, like the one you'll see on LinkedIn. And then once the other person has scanned, you can tap and go to the camera, and then tap again to take the picture. And if you find this useful, please leave the repo a star and let me know. I think I've also haven't made it public yet, so I'll do that after this talk. All right, now that you know how to connect, come connect with me and let me know if you can beat me with connecting with more than 40 people at this PyCon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Ivan, for another very interactive lightning talk. So up next, we have John, and he's speaking on tech hiring has a fraud problem. A round of applause for him.
Do I get the time off this? Do I still get this extra time? Hi everybody. Yeah, pleasure to be here. This is my first PyCon ever. So I'm going to talk today about a problem in tech hiring. I'm a Python recruiter. I've been doing this since 2008, so nearly 20 years. I am the founder of Foxley Talent. It is just me. That's the whole business, but that's what I do. Foxley, I'm a corporate member of the Django Software Foundation. We've just surpassed $20,000 of donations in 4 years, supporting that. And I'm an individual member of the Django Software Foundation as well. I run community events in London where I live near to, and yeah, as I said, this is my first PyCon. How the tech problem affects job seekers now. In the last 18 months, the risk has gone up around hiring. More and more job applications are completely fake, deliberately misleading. And unfortunately, they're not edge cases anymore. Scammers are using deepfake filters, AI scripts during interviews, bots to take technical tests. Fake profiles are showing up in almost every pipeline of candidates and job ad responses. And now, like the latest iteration, that LinkedIn accounts of real people are now being hacked or repurposed or and again badged up to look genuine. I said the scam's evolving. This is an example of a case I caught not long ago. You can see the name and everything sort of at the top. I've blocked out some of it, but then you can see the email address that was the original for this LinkedIn profile. Clicking through the original profile, like they spent all their time interacting with life science and medical posts and companies in India, and suddenly they're now working for Nike in San Diego as a software engineer. So it's like just having to be vigilant at the moment. The fake filters. There's the guy in the grey shirt has been captured and reported by the pragmatic engineer. The guy in the blue shirt was somebody who came onto one of my video calls with a filter that wouldn't quite keep up with the face movements and the natural thing, and spotted that. But what it means, and this is why it's important to you as a potential developer, as a potential job seeker, is that every recruiter, hiring manager, and HR team are now immediately looking for red flags and additional proof that you are real, which means now it's not only on you to prove you're good at your job and a good fit for the role, but that you are real as well, that you're a real person. And this is what's really uncomfortable, because these red flags, they also describe scammers, but also genuine job candidates. Like, no, you haven't got a photo on your LinkedIn or online. Like, are you a scammer, or do you just not like to publish your face? A generic CV, or has it been put through an agent to help you optimize it for a job, or is it a fake? Is it a scammer? Your broken links, are you trying to hide something, or have you made a simple mistake? Maybe you haven't included links. Are you hiding something, or do you just not want to share it? A GitHub with no commits. Are you hiding something? Is it a fake profile, or is your work just private? Is it a new LinkedIn account, or are you a bot? So actually how to stand out, it's about, even more important now, is to leave a bit of a trail of breadcrumbs, a digital paper trail of yourself, making making LinkedIn posts or social posts. The way to do it is you've got something right now today that can't be faked. You are in this room in Long Beach at PyCon, so post something on it on your socials and track that, leave a trail that you've been here. The best defense in your job search is to prove that you are undeniably real by being here and making connections. Real is what's happening in this room. There we go, seconds to go. That's me. That's how my contact details. I'm real, so are you. Let's speak.
Seems like there's a real theme emerging of people needing to take their own photos of themselves at PyCon.
Oh, yeah.
Take those selfies and post them to the socials.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. There's some words behind me. This is really cool. And this morning, we had our conference captioned by one of our real-life AI captioners. Sorry, our real-life AL captioners. Welcome, Amanda Lundberg.
Thank you. Yes, so my name is Amanda Lundberg, and I am one of the team of captioners. There are 4 of us on site here. I'm in from New Mexico. We're from New Mexico, New York, Dallas, Texas, and Seattle area, Washington. So thank you very much. And I forgot to start that. Okay, so this is, and after the talk, if you want to let me know if I should build a house with this view, let me know. Okay. All right, so I've already introduced the captioners. Most of us attended, I believe all of us attended court reporting school, which that's those little machines that you see in courtrooms. If you ever watch the online dramas, they do not have paper anymore, although I started with paper. And what do we caption? Well, we caption here, obviously, anything. We will caption events, TV. I started on television. I used to caption Good Morning America 4 days a week. I've captioned the Rose Bowl. I've captioned the Sochi Olympics. That's how long ago it's been since I've been on TV. What? Sorry, they're heckling me from the front. And the picture on this slide is from North Bay Python. This is Petaluma, California. You should definitely go. It's a great conference. No, they didn't pay me at all. Oh, yeah, you pay me to be there. This is my job. This is what I do for a living. So this is the Steno keyboard. As you can see, there's nothing actually on the keyboard. And so we write things phonetically a lot of the time. So on this slide, you can see I wrote cat, K-A-T. That makes sense. Fish, T-P-E-U-R-B. That makes sense. Okay, right? And then there's the word. We also use brief forms for things. So if a word is really annoying to me, is driving me crazy, I will make a brief for it. Perspective, I made a brief for. It's S-P-E-B-G-T. Makes sense. And infrastructure is TPRAS. And a lot of these things start to make sense when you realize TP equals F, EU equals I, and RB equals sh. So fish makes perfect sense. And sometimes we can even write phrases. So like a lot of the courtroom phrases, people will say at the same time, at this particular time, at that time. We can write those all in just one stroke. This is how I write PyCon. I wrote P-O. I'm not going to say it because Maggie has to write it when I say it. But so we'll focus on the picture of the dog. That's my little Chihuahua, Arthur. He's very cute. He's 11 years old this year. So I will say this one because I know she can write it. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Ta-da! Close enough. Sometimes the software acts weird. But yeah, so we can write things phonetically or in short form. And I like to point out in the stenography world, we have a lot of issues. So we are working, there's a lot of us working really hard to make our industry more inclusive. So learning from everyone here was really helpful to me personally, so thank you. And I also went on a whale watch the other day. I've never been on a whale watch in my entire life, and I saw a blue whale. So that's a blue whale fin. I know. I was like, if I get hit by a bus, my life is complete. Okay. So there is an open source community. If you want to learn this, you don't have to become a professional. openstenoproject.org. It's free software. It's on GitHub. Plover is the software. Plover is written in Python. So you should definitely check it out. You should contribute. If someone could make it so I could connect this machine and my software to an encoder via Plover, then I could actually use it. But I still have to use proprietary software at this time. So feel free to stay hi, stop by, say hi to us anytime. And we are White Coat Captioning. And this is our stuff up there. You can contact us. And this is my baby. His name's Sherlock. I've had him since he was 3 days old. So thank you so much. Love y'all. Have a great night.
Thank you so much for sharing, Amanda. I have always wondered how this worked in the background, so it's really nice to see here. Thanks for sharing. So next speaker, I'll be sharing about Python and the future of quantum computing. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Hi, I am Aayush Gauba. I am here for a talk tomorrow, and I thought it would be pretty fun if I did a talk today. Now, unfortunately, I did not create any slides. I thought it'd be pretty useful to kind of look at a script and kind of see that quantum and classical script is basically in the same Jupyter notebook. I mean, how cool is that, right? I mean, I can talk to a quantum computer from my Jupyter notebook here all the way in some super cool fridge, and I can still run our experiments on the same very screen. And it's very fascinating that there's no other language that does that. I cannot use any other language for the same exact purpose as I can do here. But looking at this experiment, all I'm doing here is that I'm kind of looking at randomness and trying to figure out whether a classical random number generator would be more or less random than a quantum random number generator. So for sake of time, I'll walk through it somewhat. The premise of this experiment was more or less more about if we had all the factors in our classical number generator, including our seed and in this case our n, could we get the exact same pattern every single time? The answer is yes. In case of classical case, but if you look at the quantum case in this scenario, let me scroll down. It would be different every single time. Now I can run that again, but quantum computing is very expensive. It's $40 a minute, so I'm gonna try to save some compute and show the results right here. But this is just one of the most simplest experiments that I could demonstrate with quantum computing. The thing is, the applications are limitless, and with Python at the center of everything, it just makes for limitless possibilities. I have a brief visual of how a quantum computer looks like if you have never looked at it. This actually sits right in a giant fridge, and it's super cold to the point that it's even colder than the temperature of space itself. So very exciting things. On the other hand, I was reading another academic paper because that's what I do for work, and this is a Django app that uses a quantum calculation to generate music. Basically, it translates the values from the qubits itself to classical notes and generates audio. Now, it's a very random audio. So there's no rhyme or anything to it, but it's still very fun to look at with Python at the center of everything. In this case, quantum as well. There's limitless possibilities to what we can do. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I hope that was somewhat engaging, and I'll be giving a talk tomorrow, and feel free to connect with me.
Hey, thanks, Aayush. Up on this side, we have Maia and Camila, who are going to be telling us about some cool stuff happening in Brazil.
Yes. Hello, everybody. So let's start talking about Cumbuca dev. I am Camila, and she's my cousin, Maria. And as you might notice, oh, Jesus Christ. As you might notice, we are from Brazil. If you were in any other presentation, we were the ones screaming and quite loud. Thank you very much. So Cumbuca dev is a community that started in Brazil, but now is like worldwide. And basically, we have 4 pillars. When we talk about Cumbuca, the first one is education. The second one is underrepresented groups, minorities. The third one is technology. And the fourth one is open source. And here we have some sad open source data. So if you have we don't have many surveys about open source, but the ones that we have so far, they point that 10% of the contributors are women, and for other underrepresented groups, we don't still even have data, so it's kind of hard to measure it. But Cumbuca wants to shape a new open source model where inclusion, diversity is a key and it's not optional. For that, we had to start building things from the scratch, because if we don't have diversity, it's because we have a reason for that. So things were not accessible, especially in Portuguese. We didn't have material for beginners. So we started building this for 2 years at least, and then we started putting these initiatives together. So, for example, we created a course that is completely free. It's in Portuguese, but it's from beginning to Git until GitHub and your first your first PR merged. So everything based on open source. We are writing a book also in Portuguese. The idea is afterwards you have it in English, but really accessible about Git and GitHub. The name is GitHub for Human Beings. We do social mentorships. So for underrepresented groups, we match with experienced people. We have educational repositories, so then people can learn using our repositories and they can practice. And we have some impacts already.
In these 2.5 years, we have changed more than 100 lives. We have seen people to read their first jobs, to start their new contributions. And also, if you connect with your dream, if you want to see a world with more diversity and in IT market, you can talk to us. We have some Brazilian candies. You can know more about Cumbuca, what we are doing in Brazil, and what we want to do in the world. And so, spoiler. So we want to make a wrap-up. So do you know what Cumbuca is? So we have 4 options. Who thinks Cumbuca is a cucumba? Please raise your hand and go, woo! Oh, thank you. Cucumba, no. Who thinks Cumbuca is ladies in Portuguese? Woo! Who thinks it's ball? Woo! Thank
Come on, you saw the answer. Jesus Christ, who thinks it's ball?
Woo! Okay. And who thinks it's connection? Woo! Okay. So,
What a surprise, huh?
it's ball. So Cumbuca means ball in Portuguese, and what we get here is in Brazil, some people might use English words to say something that has a word in Portuguese. So we are here making this appointment with you to make you Americans and people from all over the world to learn a Portuguese word. So when you're going to be in your morning eating your cereal, you're not taking your bowl anymore, you're gonna take your Cumbuca, right? Okay, so never bowl anymore, just Cumbuca. So when we were thinking about the names, the most dream we had together is that we wanted the foreigners to say Cumbuca. So can we do it together, please? Yes, I'm gonna say Cumbuca, then you. Wow. One more time. Cumbuca? The last one, Cumbuca? Okay, guys, you're amazing. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Here is our link code, and there's a dog from Brazil. They like to dance like us, so thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed, and if you see us, you can connect with us, and thank you.
And we have sweets, so if you come here to talk to us, we have Brazilian sweets. Hey!
Yeah!
Right.
Thank you for sharing. Obrigado. Obrigada. Yeah, thank you. So our next talk is one that I'm extremely curious about because what really happens when 5 AI agents walk into a group chat? Well, Lawrence is here to share some more. Let's give him a round of applause.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry. I'm here because of a side project that took over like a year of my life. And I want to start off with a quick poll. So here's the situation. You have a very complex problem, and you can be in either one or two groups. So you can be in group one. In group one, you can talk to your teammates that's in your group. You can talk as much as you want in order to solve the problem, right? Then you have group two. You cannot talk to your teammates at all, but you have the same exact problem, right? Which group would you want to be in? So if you want to be in group one, raise your hand. If you want to be in group two, raise your hand. There are like 5 people, all right? So what I'm going to convince you is that that might be the human thing to do, but when you're dealing with AI agents, you actually want to be in group 2, right? So this is where it comes in. 5 AI agents walk into a group chat, nothing gets done, right? But the premise of this is that 12 months ago, I was vibe coding, like most people do nowadays, and it was taking me 5 hours to finish a project, right? I thought to myself, maybe if I use 2 agents, then I would get it done in half the time. So I tried that. I went out, used the multi-agent platforms, and one thing you have to know about multi-agency is that the premise is that agents coordinate through conversation. So if they want to tackle a task or a problem, 2 agents talk to each other and they solve the problem together, right? And so the idea has been for years is that just make agents as smart as possible and they will be able to figure out how to coordinate with themselves just by talking. But that's not what happens, right? You can see from the image here, the idea was that as you increase the number of agents, the speed to resolution should actually go up too, right? It should take you a shorter amount of time to resolve problems, but it goes up and it kind of falls off, right? That's the reality of it. So this is called the group chat problem. So what if you took 2 agents together in a room and you have them solving a problem? 2 agents, fine. 3 agents, and I'm not lying, they start arguing with each other. 4, they spend all their time second guessing each other. And once you get up to like 5, the context windows, for most of you that know context windows, is how big of a conversation you can have with the LLM. But they talk so much that they fill that up. And a side effect of that, if you're ever working with LLMs, is that once they get toward the top end of their context windows, they start to get really, really dumb, right? So all that put together, you have this group chat problem of just agents talking to each other and not getting anything done. So what if this assumption of them talking together is just completely wrong, right? It isn't an intelligence problem. It's an organizational design problem, right? So my idea, which might be radical, is that they don't talk at all, right? And we already had a solution for this. Back in 40 years ago, we came up with a Kanban board. As an engineer, every task that you want is stuck on the board. Everything that you need to know about that task is on that, on that sticker, that sticky note or whatever else that you're using. And you just need to go there and pull it off the board in order to know how to do things. And so the idea was, let's do that with agents and see what happens. So I did that experiment. In the blue is Marcus Mini. So I built this project called Marcus, behemoth of a project to solve this problem, but then I stripped it down to its core pieces and just tested this Kanban board idea. And the green and red are the major frameworks versus the blue, being able to solve different sizes of problems, and it actually blows them out the water. So having them not talk is a great idea. So There's a couple things. There's an open space that I'm going to be hosting when AI agents go feral. Also, we're going to be working at markets for sprints. So come out and start tackling this problem with me. So that's it.
Thanks, Larry. You're absolutely right. Up next, we have Joanna, who's going to be talking about PyCon Africa.
So thank you, everyone. And I will be talking about PyCon Africa. As many of you can guess, first of all, Africa is not a country, so PyCon Africa is definitely a regional conference where, like PyCon US, we come together to celebrate Python and the work we've been doing annually for the whole year. Two pillars, or there are two visions for PyCon Africa. One is that we come together to foster or steer thoughtful conversations that can contribute to the radar around innovation and development for the whole continent. And we do it while still being very nonprofit. That means we are sustained by volunteers, just like many of us are here. So this year, PyCon Africa first of all, rotates around the whole continent, and this year it's right down in my home city, in Kampala and in Uganda. The venue is called Speak Resort Munyonyo. It's at the shores of Lake Victoria, and so the whole PyCon will literally have the best view of the country, as well as enjoy the best food in the region of East Africa, as well as the whole of Africa. It's a biased opinion, but yeah, you may have some good food. Yeah, I am not I organize kind of, but I'm not a chair for PyCon Africa. And so because PyCon Africa is hosted by Uganda, the two main chairs for this year will be Dorothy and Hassan. Feel free to drop any questions to them or through our main email at team@PyCon Africa. What to expect is that we have 5 full days of thoughtful discussion, over 500 attendees, as well as companies of more than hundreds of companies coming together to support the community and have thoughtful discussions around careers and engagement in industry, academia, and everything in between. Expect tutorials, as well as a very famous academic poster session and very many diversity events. How you can contribute is one, if you are a company here, feel free to talk to us to be a sponsor. That is one way of contributing to the community and to the world in general. You can buy a ticket for yourself, but also maybe sponsor a ticket for a student. Our student tickets are as cheap as $30. That's less than a meal for some of you. We also have merch. You can buy. We can be able to ship some merch to you. That's also one way of supporting the community this year. And most importantly, our theme this year is how can Python power the African innovation in different sectors, industry and academia. And with all that, I would love to welcome you this year in October 7th to 11th to Kampala for a great celebration of the language. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna. I just got reminded about home. I miss home so much. Thank you. So how many of us here love Halloween? Oh, wow. So Mike here is going to share with us how we can automate Halloween with Python. A round of applause for him.
Thank you. My name is Mike McGurrin. My talk tonight is on Hauntomation, or how to level up your home Halloween decorations using Python. So the basic idea is to both control and animate your props using Python. Usually that Python, it can be on a laptop, but more often with this application, it's on a Raspberry Pi or CircuitPython on a microcontroller. And you combine that with sensors such as motion detectors to trigger the prop, and outputs, which can be audio, can be speech, or can be servos or motors to control motion. The first application is really simple Python. I'll show you the code in a minute. But it's basically to orchestrate multiple props. Instead of just having you bought five props from the store, they each do their thing. You basically tie it together into a program. So one motion sensor then sets off a choreographed routine involving multiple props. And the wiring here can let the interface with multiple different kind of props. The code is really dirt simple. It's 24 lines of code. Basically, you have an endless loop. You wait for the motion detector to go off, and then you basically just send commands to each prop in order that you need to trigger them, wait the appropriate time, turn that trigger off, set the next trigger on. When it's all done, you wait 50 seconds because it's nicer if your routines, if multiple kids are there, they don't just restart automatically, but there's a little bit of pause in between. Oh, it bumped up to my next slide. All right, so the second project has a lot more code involved. ChatterPie is an open source project that I developed that's an audio servo controller. An audio servo controller takes audio that can be from a microphone for live sound or from a pre-recorded file and converts that into servo commands such as controlling the jaw on a talking skull. And the idea was there's a number of commercial electronic products that do this for $40 to $60. I thought, I could probably write software to do this on a $5 Pi Zero. It barely works on a Pi Zero, but it does. And it definitely works on larger Pis.
Double toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble.
So there you go. Then the third project is wireless motion mapping of your head. The key there is that ball cap on the right in the photo. There's a Raspberry Pi and an inertial measurement unit on the bill of the ball cap. The cord there is just to power it. And basically, it measures the orientation of the ball cap that is your head, whether you're nodding, turning, tilting. And then it uses XML RPC running over Wi-Fi to send that orientation information to another Raspberry Pi. You're hidden behind the curtain or even in another room, and then the skull moves based on what your motion is. Sorry. And you can see there's a little bit of lag, but that really doesn't matter because you're hidden behind the curtain. The trick-or-treaters are only seeing the skull move. So those are three of my projects. There's a lot of other projects on the web using Python for Halloween automation. Here's three. One has sound and motion with a sensor. One is just a milk jug skull that changes colors. The one on the bottom right uses OpenCV so that jack-o'-lantern is actually on a turning platform and turns to follow the closest trick-or-treater wherever that person tends to move. And then where do you come in? Well, I've created a crowdsourced list of Python resources on the web. So if you can get some ideas from that, you can get how to build things. And what I really want you to do is contribute to that. It's a crowdsourced application. So you can go online, fill out a form, give us your ideas, everything from a complete tutorial to just it's a general purpose Python library, but I think it would be really useful for Halloween applications. And then you can get more information on the projects that I showed you, write-ups on the projects. The code is on my GitHub link, this presentation, as well as the crowdsourced form and the form to submit your ideas. You can get to all of those from the link here, which is also on the QR code. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. Hey, up next we have Jack, who's going to be talking about modeling things.
Cool. All right. Hi, everybody. It's a little hard to follow Python on Halloween, but I'm going to try. So I'm going to talk about a quick little project I did to use a couple lines of Python to help answer how many people are getting born at our hospital and how we can forecast that for resource planning. Quick intro. I'm a data scientist at the University of Rochester. I focus on quality improvement work and analytics. I'm super passionate about data visualization and teaching data visualization. I have a background in life science research. I traded in my pipettes for Python about 5 years ago. Also, my reason for being up here is I used to really loathe public speaking, and then I made a deal with myself about 10 years ago that every opportunity I could get to do it, I would. So I do. And you can't go wrong with animal pictures, so I've got my partners in crime. And then the last one there, my wife and I have a competition of who can take the most pictures of our cats yawning. Perfect. So the question, I was sitting at my desk, banging my head against why I couldn't get certain SQL queries to run, and I got a Teams message from a doctor in our labor and delivery department that said, hey, I have a meeting in like 3 hours. We think we need more resources because in the summer months, because we think we might have more bursts, but we don't have a good way to back that up. Is there a way you can help us do that in like the next 3 hours? I was like, sure, why not? I very rarely say no, which for projects, which gets me into trouble all the time. So I said, sure, I'll take a stab at it. So I have access to our clinical data, so I said, okay, I'm just gonna load up our burst data in a notebook and see what we can do. I said, okay, here are bursts over time, monthly, and I was like, my stats is a little rusty, but looking at that, I was like, okay, sort of non-stationary, but does look pretty seasonal. I was like, I bet there's a package or library I can use to do this. So like, I'll just whip out the trusty old stats models. So I had to do a quick refresher of what the heck I was doing when it came to forecasting. So I took a look at my autocorrelation and partial autocorrelation plots. I then had to mine my P, Ds, and Qs, which are the parameters that go into that, and which that nice part about working for a university is I could run down the hall to the stats department to make sure I wasn't doing anything too dumb. And they said, you should try a Surima model. Stats Models has one. So that's what we did. And then I ran it. I kind of liked the fit there. I was like, all right, that looks like that'll work. So let's do a forecast. So I forecasted out the next 24 months. We had a really low mean absolute percentage error. And then the other error was only about 20. So I was like, hey, for this meeting, which was what we have to do is just justify, hey, we think we're going to see more in the next months, but we need to back it up with something. That's sort of a lot of the way the asks go for resources in healthcare. So it's like, okay, this will work. Then I sent it over, and they were happy with it, and were able to use it, right? So I thought the kind of neat thing here was, right, like, I was able to do this. I still, and I've only been doing it for about 5 years, so relatively new to Python, but with just one notebook, a few libraries, maybe 20, 30 lines of code, I was able to answer an important question pretty quickly, right? We were able to get that turned around really fast. There was obviously more sophisticated ways to do this, but we didn't need to in this case. I also got a great stats refresher. I had a little bit of a flashback to when I first learned some of those forecasting methods. But the really cool thing that happened here was, once I did that, they liked it. The best part is, the worst part is when you do analysis and you send it over and you hear great and then nothing ever again, was they wanted more stuff, right? Which makes it more fun. Like, hey, can we tweak this so we can look at forecasting for preterm bursts, which require more intensive resource allocation, things like that. So this is actually now, from a 2-hour quick turnaround project, being built into a little analytical app that allows them to tweak all the parameters so that they can forecast for resource planning. Spoke a little faster, got another minute, but yeah, so it's just a neat little project that we were able to do with Python really quickly, right? And yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Jack. Up next, we have Paul, and he's speaking on re.sub as a decorator. Paul, the stage is yours.
Thank you. My name is Paul McGuire. I've been using Python for around 25 years. I'm a site reliability engineer for Indeed, and Indeed our sponsor for the conference, how I came to come to the conference. So we're going to just do a quick poll for those people who use regular expressions in their Python code. And so there's a couple of common functions that we use. Match, re.match. Okay. re.search, anyone? Okay. And now re.sub. Anyone? Okay, a few. I found that re.sub is sort of like the poor stepchild, and I have a couple of reasons why I think that might be the case, and I have a sort of a novel way of approaching that, which I call decoratorification. So that kind of rolls right off the tongue. So using re.sub, it's, for those of you who haven't used it or aren't familiar with it, it's a functional interface for doing more complex manipulations and modifications to a string. What you do is you define a regex for some patterns that you'll find multiple times in the string, and then you define a callback to be run on each of those fragments. And finally, you pass in the source string that was going to be the initial state of the string, and then that's going to return the final result. And so, in fact, that's really what we were just saying here. So the point is that the substitution function gets called once for every occurrence of the pattern in the input string. So here's an example where we're going to convert some acronyms from the new style to the old style when we still had Royal typewriters, and we put periods after every letter. As I showed before, we have the pattern, we have some callback where we're going to insert periods, and then we have the input text. We've packaged this in a little function. So we need this function to insert the periods, and in this case, we're going to use .join on all the characters in the match string, and followed by one additional period. And so now we can call our make old style acronyms. I used to work at GE, but now I work at IBM, and we get this old style acronym format. So why don't I like re.sub in its current form? The method signature, I can never remember. I can never remember the order of the arguments, and the signature for the callback. Oh yes, that takes a match. And what's the API for a match? I don't remember that as well. So it would be nice if I could package this up a little bit better. So what if we did this as a decorator? And we could just write a function that just takes strings and returns strings, and I don't have to worry about all the RE business. So we could write something like this instead. We could say, well, here's a simpler re.sub. We have all the same information here. We have the pattern in the decorator. We have the callback, and the callback takes the argument. So just like before, we have make old style acronyms. We pass in, I used to work at GE, and now I work at IBM, again transformed. So what does that decorator look like? There's not that much to it, actually. When I have a decorator, this decorator takes an argument, which is the pattern. It has to become a decorator factory, so it's actually a decorator to produce new decorators. The RE magic, re.sub call, the order of functions, the callback, that's all encapsulated inside the inner decorator. So now what we have, simpler re.sub, just like we had before in the example. I've added another decorator just to echo, here are the calls and what happens in each one. And you can see that we echo, yes, arguments are GE, and we return G.E. And the final result, we get the work at IBM. Here is the link to my GitHub gist. In this QR code. This also supports capture groups and name groups as well in the regex pattern. Thank you very much.
I'm such a fan of uses and abuses of decorators, and that one I might actually steal. So
okay,
thank you for that, Paul.
Great.
There are so many inspiring things happening in Python communities throughout the world, and every PyCon US I seem to be hearing something new that's happening in South Korea, and this year is no exception. Seongsoo is going to tell us about it.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Seongsoo. I'm a system engineer running OpenStack, and I'm one of the organizers of the Python Korea user groups. So this story is my journey from open source users to the maintainers. And this slide was created with AI, but the story was not generated by AI. So this is a true story. So I'm also the one of organizer of OpenStack Korea user groups, and I want to see more OpenStack contributors in Korea. But how? How can I grow them? So that was my big problem. And I had one more big problem. To help new contributors, maybe I should be on OpenStack contributors first, but I was not a contributor, and I don't have any commit to the OpenStack. So I asked myself, how can I be a mentor for new contributors? While I was thinking about this problem, I found a very interesting program run by Korean government. It is called Contribution Academies. Every year, they pick about 10 to 15 projects, and this year, 11 projects joined this program. So my first mentoring program was in 2020. I felt very hard, and I was not a committer, I was not a maintainer, so I'm just an user of OpenStack. So how can I run an OpenStack mentoring program? After a lot of thinking, I made a simple plan. Started with what I can do first. That project was OpenStack Client. So OpenStack Client is a CLI tool for OpenStack. The source code is very easy to read and understand. In the first mentoring program, the most of work was fix the small bug and update the document. But year by year, the contribution kept growing. And something really nice happened. Some of my mentees became mentors later. And we made something meaningful things together. A lot of work from our mentors, including me, we are able to invite an OpenStack client maintainers to Open Infra Summit Asia in Korea. How often in your life do you meet an open source project maintainers in person? For me, this was a moving moment. My works became visible. Last year, we had another exciting moment. Using our mentoring experience, my old mentees joined an OpenStack contribution camp in Indonesia as mentors. It was a very meaningful moment for us. Our experience and hard work were able to help the global community too. And now I'm mentoring the student from Gyeongbuk National University to contribute to the OpenStack Swift team. This photo was taken at the OpenStack PTG last April. In these photos, my mentees are sharing their ideas with the communities. And now, I'm a maintainer of the OpenStack I-18 team. I started as a user of the open source, and I became a user group organizer, and I became a mentor for new contributors, and now I'm a maintainer. This is my story, and this is my journey so far, but the real start of my journey came even earlier. I learned all of this from PyCon Sprint. Yeah. This photo is from the Python packaging sprint at PyCon US 2019. I don't remember the name of the person who helped me, but they are very kind. They taught me how to contribute to the Python packagings. That moment changed everything for me. People at the PyCon sprint were very kind to me. So they helped me a lot. Because of that, I'm here today. So I want to say thank you to everyone who helped me back then. So do you want to know what is open source? And do you want to become an open source contributors? And do you want to share your experience with others? Start your open source journey from PyCon Sprint. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's very inspiring. And if you didn't know, we'll have our sprint starting on Monday. So please make sure to attend so that next year you can come share your story as well. So our last talk from my side is going to be given by Lex, and he'll be speaking on testing plus Spoof. A round of applause for him.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lex Scarisbrick, and I want to talk to you a little bit about testing and a project called Spoof. See if I can make this go. Some technical difficulties here, apologies. See if we can make this go. There we go. Okay, and we're back. This is a pattern that I've encountered a lot. I don't know if I would go so far as to call it an anti-pattern, but it does not spark joy for me. But it addresses a common problem, though. How do you test code that really wants to connect to a server that's not reachable from a test environment or that should not be reachable from a test environment? Typically, you recreate enough of that server to make the test pass, and you use that using something like mock patch or something similar like that, or dependency injection. And for a lot of use cases, this works just fine. Occasionally, though, the patch targets can get sufficiently complex that it really seems like it would be easier to have something like mock, but for HTTP. Let's see. Dang it. Okay. If anyone wants to teach a class on how to give lightning talks, that would be amazing. So the idea would be, instead of live patching the code with like mock patch, you would have a mock server actually listening on the network, and it would be returning test fixtures instead of like altering the code that you're trying to test, hopefully closer to how the code is supposed to work. But this would sort of present a different problem. How does the mock server know what to return? And I found a lot of the guidance on this suggests that use a framework like mock or something similar, or I'm sorry, like Flask or something similar. But that's just a different kind of request mapping and maybe not so great. But what if there was a way for the mock server to skip the request mapping entirely and just return responses from the queue instead? So this is Spoof, and the idea of having a web server where requests and responses are decoupled became the inspiration for Spoof. It might be a little tough to see on the slide here, but this is an example of Spoof in action, sort of a minimal example. Creating a real web server on a real network socket, and using requests to, set a response, queue a response, and get requests to then fetch that response. And so it might not be very obvious here, but it listens on localhost and the next available port by default. And it is so it'd be safe to use in test environments or on your laptop. It's not going to listen, on the outside network. Multiple servers can be run concurrently, and each with their own response queue. And where the server is running can be found with the URL property of a Spoof instance. And if you squint, you can maybe see that in the request call. If you'd like to try it out, the QR code on the slides points to the PyPI project for that. It's based on the HTTP server module included in the Python standard library, and it has no external dependencies. So just a quick shout out to everyone who's ever contributed to the Python standard library. It has a tremendous amount of functionality, and I'm still occasionally surprised by finding something new. If you haven't looked at it again lately, I would encourage you to do that. You can build some really good, cool stuff. Let's see. So in summary, Spoof is an attempt to simplify serving test fixtures on a real web server, on a real network socket, to hopefully provide an alternative to live patching code for test cases. There isn't enough time to go over the list here, but these are some of the supported features that you can use with Spoof today. So for example, if you need to invoke a debugger on the server side of a request through an HTTP proxy, over SSL with post-quantum cryptography, over IPv6, Spoof's got you covered. You can do that. But whether or not anyone else finds Spoof useful, I hope that folks are inspired to think about testing a little bit and how real to make their tests. So, thank you.
Thanks, Lex. And our final lightning talk for today is from Leo, and okay.
Hi, everyone. This is my first PyCon, so I thought I would... Who's ready for a very technical talk on errors at the very last part of the day? Anyone? Bueller. Well, first of all, I feel like it's very important while we're here in Long Beach. Welcome to Long Beach. This is my hometown. I used to live 2 blocks from here. I love this place. You are actually in a place of history, but we're going to talk about that in a second. You know what this is, anyone? That's the Otters over like a couple blocks from here. Has anyone been to the aquarium yet? A couple people? Yeah, I like the aquarium a lot. I've been a member there for years. It's a great place. It is confused with this building a lot. That's the building you're in right now. This is the former Long Beach Sports Arena. My dad once saw Led Zeppelin here when he was in high school in 1972. So it's kind of cool to be here on the same stage as Led Zeppelin. We'll pretend. We'll go with it. But think of it this way. We're here in a container. We're here to talk about testing. We're here to talk about errors and validation and making things easier for us. And so I used to work as the product owner on a really specialized tool in the WordPress ecosystem on a Google project to create an easier way to make code compatible for our thing. We'll talk about what that is, but don't worry too much about it. And by the way, I apologize for the transparency here with my images generated with AI, but here I have a burrito sliced up. I have here our Snoop Dogg latte for our local hometown, and I have our receipt printer from an AI-generated ATM machine. But of these 3 points here, we talk about developer experience. In a real sense of what good developer experience means, we want to create delight. And hopefully this is going to be a delightful conversation at the end of your day. So in user experience, we have to ask questions about what a user actually wants. When you deal with an error, it gets really confusing very often, and I have taken a deep dive back into Python the last 6 months. I've paid a lot of attention to a lot of errors, and so these are definitely personal errors. And also, when you deal with an error, you have to know that someone is going to go and do something next. Hopefully they're not on Stack Overflow. Hopefully they're not in some random AI generation. Hopefully they know what to do with your errors. And I'll show you an example of what a good one looks like. But in this thought experiment, I'm imagining someone, very real for me in my case, I actually had a microwave once do this. When your door of a microwave stops working, should it prevent you from operating that microwave, right? So in this case, I imagine, you're gonna deal with some chaotic reality where every single thing fails and every single part of the compilation and running something will break. And I'm running an ARM64 Linux machine that has all kinds of crazy compilation errors, and running software is a pain in the neck, and dealing with these errors is a thing that happens every single day. So when I look at this stuff, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what any of these things mean. Why is CUDA running on my ARM64 machine? It doesn't support anything NVIDIA. I'm so confused. So if you've got some of this stuff in your software, please be kind to me, please, because I don't want to tear apart your microwave. Next up, graceful degradation. When you're dealing with errors, when you're dealing with mistakes, when you're dealing with tracebacks, you want people to understand sometimes a traceback is necessary, but sometimes failing isn't the thing that they want. So when you think about your failures and you think about falling back through your failures, ask yourself, can you be a little bit more graceful or even just a little bit more kind? And so in this case, this thought experiment is what happens when you go to a coffee shop and you ask for an oat milk latte. And instead of getting the oat milk latte, they start telling you about how incredible their local cows are. And they start talking to you about the ethical treatment of animals and how good they are for their milk. But you ask for oat milk. Why is it that everything is falling apart? What's going on in this world? And if you've ever seen the lovely pilot of Portlandia, they talk about the local chickens, and they end up going to the farm, they end up falling down the crazy rabbit hole of a cult. That's what it feels like trying to answer questions about certain things in this universe. If you really want to understand how something works, studying it takes even longer. So if you could help us just a little bit, please, for the people here who are a little bit new to Python but are happy to learn as much as we can, make it a little bit easier for me, please. And finally, we'll think about brand trust. Brand trust is the affinity, ultimately, to using your thing. So if you've got a plugin, if you've got an ecosystem tool that you're using, if you've got a framework you're using, if you've got a library you're using, right? I'm constantly installing pip packages, and I sometimes don't want to use that package because it stopped working on another project I was working on. And so I have to think about it. Am I going to rip this thing out everywhere else? Give me something to trust you. Give me things that make me feel good and safe. And so ultimately, we want to ask, does this help or hurt? Your validation system can be really useful. So we all know about ATMs, right? Whoever here is using ATM, probably most of the room, I assume. Yeah, so you give money to some people, and there's some other things. In my thought experiment, I imagine when someone at some point tries to poke at this ATM, it'll just garbage out all of the ridiculous things. And a very, very real likelihood might be that you reveal the credentials and you might have put a decimal point in the wrong place and you might end up taking that money and doing something crazy. People do all kinds of things. And so when you're dealing with credentials, for example, helping people know that you've done the right things by obfuscation or even just base 64 encoding things, it can be huge. Just reduce the attack vector and you can make your life much better. And so quickly, I'll talk about the project I worked on with Google back in 2018. We worked on something called the compatibility tool for the AMP for WordPress project, an incredibly interesting thing we worked on. We spent a very long time breaking this thing down. And so we went from complex error states to stuff that looks like this. So as you look at your WordPress panel, it'll tell you which version you're looking at. It'll tell you whether you've had errors, and it'll give you lots of conveniences that make your non-technical users feel like they're allowed to join the party. And for the more technical folks, we thought really, really hard about how much this stuff might end up happening. And let me tell you, if anyone does stuff like this with your errors to let us know what's going on, I'm going to be so happy. I'm going to sit there. I will study your code left and right. I will tell people about it. I'll put it on LinkedIn. I'll be stoked. Please do this. Please, please, please. Just let us know what actually is going on. The stack traces can be really confusing. So, yeah, I did promise some clarity here. So we're going to look here at why these things really matter. When you think about the actual experiences of operating a microwave, we think about the experiences of going to a coffee shop, we think about using an ATM. We have built in these senses of trust. And so I ask you, and I implore you, please consider the user experience process of what you do. Please consider graceful degradation, and please consider brand trust. Build a more delightful user experience, and people will keep using your stuff. They'll prioritize your things over everyone else's. And so I mentioned the aquarium earlier, and we're kind of in the not aquarium. So they have this incredible display that they've had there since I was a kid. And I was here a couple years ago, and they had some error happen, and I eventually fixed it. I'm going to pick on my lovely aquarium because, of course, the kind of experience you get with interfaces sometimes looks like this, right? And the irony is that this is a touchscreen, but this is like some out-of-date piece of software that runs this Flash thing, and that you can't click it on the touchscreen. And so I ended up talking to the IT guy. We ended up getting it fixed. But this is the kind of experiences people have every single day. And so, yeah, I recommend that if you can, you go look at some otters instead of just focusing strictly on errors. Put those errors in a container and find a way to find a little bit of joy this week. So thank you all for having me.
We're done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're there.
We're arguing over who's going to wrap up. It is late in the day.
Yeah.
Thanks, Leo. Did we enjoy our lightning talks? Thanks to all 14 of our speakers giving 13 lightning talks. You're all fantastic. Thank you. So there's another session of lightning talks tomorrow at 8 o'clock. So see you all here bright and early. I promise some of them will be a good replacement for coffee, maybe. Yeah. And if you are inspired and want to give a lightning talk, you can't give one tomorrow morning because we've already chosen those presenters, but sign-ups are open for tomorrow evening and will be open through about lunchtime, and tomorrow afternoon, if you miss out for tomorrow afternoon's lightning talks, you can sign up to give a talk on Sunday, so you should totally do that.
And we'll also be having the PyLadies auction tomorrow, so hopefully we'll see you there as well.
If you don't have your ticket, buy one. I think you can still do that.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you all for coming. We'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.